Welcome back to the Ohio Farm Bureau podcast. I'm Ty Higgins. Planting season, a critical time for agriculture. The success of a farmer's crop largely depends on the attention and patience shown during this time of year that typically lends itself to long hours and potential fatigue for workers across the agriculture industry. Joining us to talk about planting season safety is Derek Homer, nationwide risk management expert and farmer. How you doing, Derek?
I'm doing well.
I mentioned you're a farmer, and this is getting to be a pretty busy time of year. Are you in yet?
Yeah, we've started it as well.
Yeah, as you and I talk, my phone's blowing up with farmers telling me they're getting started or their neighbor across the street is getting started. And either way, they say either they're crazy or the neighbor is
Neighbor is.
crazy. So we're getting to the point now where things are really starting to roll here for planting season. And Nationwide's risk management experts like yourself encouraging agriculture professionals to keep safety measures top of mind during this very busy time of year. I want to run through some of those things that you're encouraging farmers across the country to do as they get into the field this spring. And the first thing is ensuring visibility of equipment. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, so if it's got a flashing light on it, if it's got a lens on it, it was made by the manufacturer to increase visibility, right? So we want to just make sure that all those flashers are working, that the lenses are clean. When the planter's going across the field, sometimes it's a dust ball. So before it pulls out on the road, I just need to take a minute, wipe the dust off those lenses, make sure those are good. A lot of our equipment, particularly large equipment, has reflective tape on it. So we're going to want to go ahead and make sure that reflective tape is good. It's reflecting correctly and it's clean to help increase our visibility on the roads. A lot of rural drivers just aren't used to seeing equipment on the road at the frequency that they do during the spring season. So, we want to just make sure that we're easy to see from a distance.
One thing I noticed over the winter and early spring months here, we had quite a few storms with some heavy winds come through, and what might not have been in the field in the fall after harvest may have blown in from who knows where. And it's important to take a look at those fields and make sure there aren't any hazards there before we get started.
Yeah, some things that we're finding in the field here in the last week or so, we're seeing tree limbs and even whole trees that are down that weren't there. I've actually had a couple of tile blowouts that have popped up that I hadn't seen. We were pretty dry last year, so when we got some of that moisture this winter, some of those tile blowouts went ahead and popped up. So we're getting those fixed. We're just trying to be really, really cautious when we go to the field about watching our ground speeds, being aware of everything, and then if there's an area that you can't see very well, maybe there's some weeds or some foxtail cover or something, well, then we're going to treat that with extra caution until we know what's in it.
One on the list that's pretty self-explanatory is wearing a seatbelt. If there's a seatbelt in that cab, make sure and put it on and keep yourself as safe as possible. Also, asking farmers there at Nationwide to check chemical products twice.
Yeah, so ever since pandemic, we've kind of found ourselves in kind of a supply shortage issue sometimes on some of our ag chemicals. So in some cases, we've gone to some generics or we've gone to a premix that maybe it's a little bit different. I would just encourage everybody to stop, read the label on that, make sure that that chemical is exactly what you thought it was, and it's not different by, some minuscule amount or something like that. Maybe you need to have a respirator when you mix this chemical and you didn't before. So just take a few minutes and really read through that label and understand what you have.
And as you put the new crop in, always keeping an eye on that old crop in the bin.
Absolutely. The reason why we see some of these people trying to go into the bin this time of year can be because that crop gets out of condition or we get a crust. If we maintain the grain quality ahead of time, there's no reason for us to ever go in, which is really what we're after, right? A zero entry mentality.
And I'm in the communications field, so I know that communication is key when it comes to being safe during planting season.
Yeah, unfortunately, somewhere every year we hear about somebody that had a medical issue somewhere and nobody really knew about it for 3 or 4 hours. So we want to make sure that everyone's got their phones with them, that they can communicate. They know where everybody's at. We're keeping tabs on everybody. I laugh for just a second because as we're talking about this, I actually had to run a cell phone out this morning at 7 o'clock to someone that forgot one and went to the field for the day. So yeah, that communication is going to be really important.
As many things happen on the farm and so many moving parts, sometimes the last thing the farmer thinks about is themselves. But boy, just taking care of yourself and getting the rest when you need it and knowing when to take a deep breath is important this time of year too.
Absolutely. We have a tendency to get really, really focused on planting, and there's all these other things that are important too. So we need to kind of, keep the main thing, but at the same time, focus on all those subsidiary things.
Derek Homer, nationwide risk management expert and farmer. I wish you a very safe and happy spring planting season. And of course, you can find out more expert tips and resources to help you run a successful business and maintain the safety of your operation by visiting Nationwide's Ag Insight Center at aginsightcenter.com. Derek, thank you so much.
Thank you.
If you like what you hear, you can like, subscribe, or even follow on Facebook or any of our podcast platforms on social media. I'm Ty Higgins. This is the Ohio Farm Bureau podcast. See you down the road.